Today I'll walk you through a Norse file that was culturally downgraded for 1,000 years, Freyja. The version you know, Norse love goddess, golden-haired beauty, patron of romance and marriage, basically a Nordic Venus. But open Snorri Sturluson's 13th century Prose Edda and read the original. She is the chief instructor of Cedar war magic. She personally taught the All-Father Odin the entire art of battlefield prophecy. Her domain Fólkvangr picks slain heroes before Odin's Valhalla does. Her chariot is pulled by 2 giant cats. Her weapon is the Brísingamen necklace. For 1,000 years we remembered love goddess and forgot she was one of the most formidable war deities in the Norse pantheon. Her real identity, Freyja, belongs to the Vanir, an elder divine tribe that paralleled the Aesir and governed earth, magic, life, and death. The Aesir couldn't defeat the Vanir in war. The two sides eventually made peace by exchanging hostages, and Freyja, along with her brother Freyr and their father Njord, was sent into Asgard as a hostage god. Snorri, in Prose Edda Gylfaginning chapter 24, writes it plainly. She is the most glorious of the goddesses. Every Aesir deity defers to her. She is not the minor romance goddess. She is the war magic chief absorbed into the main pantheon from an outside tribe. This episode reconstructs 3 things using the Prose Edda, the Poetic Edda, and the Icelandic sagas. 1. Where did the love goddess label come from? And why do 13th century Christian manuscripts diverge so sharply from the 9th century oral tradition? 2. Why does her domain Fólkvangr get first pick of slain warriors before Odin's Valhalla? And what does Freyja picks first mean in the Norse power hierarchy? 3. Her Brísingamen necklace, her cat-drawn chariot, the cedar magic she taught Odin. These 3 love goddess accessories are war totems, not romance totems. Not a single one is about love. First layer, how did the love goddess label stick? The key moment is around 1220 AD, when the Icelandic scholar Snorri Sturluson, writing after Iceland's Christianization, needed to repackage the Old Norse gods into a Roman mythology framework European readers could recognize. Snorri's strategy, map Freyja onto Venus, emphasize her love song spells, and downplay the cedar war magic side. But he couldn't erase it completely. In Gylfaginning chapter 24 he still had to write, "She loves love songs, but she is also fond of war." That phrase, fond of war, is the one line the softening project failed to scrub. Second layer, the distribution of slain warriors. You've heard of Valhalla, Odin's Hall of Heroes, where the fallen fight all day and feast every night. But the Poetic Edda's Grimnismal stanza 14 says plainly in the original, Fólkvangr is the 9th realm, where Freyja decides who sits. Each day she chooses half of the slain. Odin gets the other half. Note the sequence. Freyja chooses first. In the Norse religious system, first pick equals first authority. Her warriors go to her, and Odin only distributes what's left. Translated, she is not Odin's assistant goddess. She is his peer or his superior at the sorting level. Third layer, Cedar war magic. Cedar is one of the oldest forms of Norse shamanic magic. Its core capabilities are battlefield prophecy, fate manipulation, cursing enemies, healing allies, and disabling weapons. Snorri himself writes it cleanly in Ynglinga Saga chapter 4. Freyja was of Vanir origin. It was she who brought cedar into the Aesir and taught Odin this craft. Think about the weight of that sentence. Odin, the supreme Norse deity, the figure every Viking warrior feared, whose entire battlefield foresight and raven intelligence network runs on this tech stack, was taught by Freyja. In modern language, Odin is the student, Freyja is the teacher. Christianized manuscripts couldn't cut this fully, they only tried to speed past it. Now her artifacts. Item 1. The Brísingamen necklace. The version you've heard, Freyja slept with 4 dwarves for 4 nights to get the necklace, is a late 14th century edition in Sorla A with a QTTR, invented to strengthen her erotic label. Check earlier Icelandic sources. The root, Brísing, in Old Norse means blazing, burning. This is a war totem necklace. Legend says it glowed on the battlefield when Freyja wore it into war. Loki stealing this necklace is a favorite scene in the old poem Husdrapa and in Viking art, because it is a trophy-grade weapon, not a piece of jewelry. Item 2. Her mount. The picture in your head of a love goddess drawn by doves is Romanized imagination. Freyja's actual mount is two huge wildcats, variously translated as Norwegian forest cats or lynxes, pulling a chariot. In Prose Edda Gylfaginning chapter 49, describing Baldur's funeral, the original text reads, Freyja came driving her chariot drawn by her two cats. In Norse religion, cats are Freyja's sacred animals and war-associated. Viking-era archaeology has turned up multiple battle axes carved with cat head totems. Linking cats to a chariot is warrior culture, not romance culture. She isn't riding a flower cart. She's driving a war chariot. An overlooked detail, her name. Freyja in Old Norse literally means the lady, the female lord, matching her brother Freyr meaning the lord. These are not personal names. They are titles, a continuation of a title borne by a whole line of ancient Vanir female leaders. Archaeologist Britt-Marie Nastrom in her book Freyja, the great goddess of the North points out clearly, before Christianization, a huge number of Scandinavian place names still carried Freyja as a prefix, and they correlated with ancient war sacrifice sites, not romance sites. Translated, even her name is female lord, not love goddess, and that layer was something even Snorri couldn't fully rewrite. Her husband Ar. A love goddess is supposed to come with a husband, right? But Ar, in all surviving Norse texts, is little more than a hollow name. Snorri in the Prose Edda writes only one line. She has a husband named Ar, who often travels far. Freyja stays home and weeps for him, and her tears turn to red gold. Look at the root. Ar and Odin share the same root. Scholar Rudolf Simic in his Dictionary of Northern Mythology argues Ar is very likely an earlier facet of Odin that got split off in later manuscripts. Translated, at an earlier layer of myth, Freyja's husband simply was Odin. They were originally the top war and magic partnership, later broken into a love goddess and absentee husband fairy tale. About those tears turning to red gold. You assumed it was a romantic motif of longing? In the Viking economy, red gold, Raugull, was the top-tier unit for war reparations and plunder. Gold seized in Viking raids was accounted for specifically in red gold. So Freyja's tears are red gold translates, in Viking context, too. Her sorrow itself is trophy-grade wealth. What she cries out is not pearls. It is hard currency capable of outfitting a raiding fleet. Medieval Christianized manuscripts package the metaphor as she's just a weepy woman missing her husband. The original text was saying, she is a source of wealth, the personification of the war economy. The bigger picture, Freyja is the mythological projection of a real class of Viking-era female military leaders. At Oseberg in Norway, archaeologists excavated an 834 AD Viking grave containing a 21-meter-long ship, two high-status female burials, and an extensive set of seed or ritual gear, bronze staffs, hemp oil, ceremonial herbs. A 2019 DNA analysis confirmed one of the occupants was a seed or priestess of the highest rank. Meanwhile, at Birka in Sweden, the BJ 581 Viking warrior grave, DNA tested in 2017, was confirmed to be female, buried with a full weapon set, two warhorses, and a strategic game board, standard gear for a senior military officer. Translated, in the 9th century, Viking society really did have female warrior and female priestess classes. Freyja is their deification. Zoom in on Oseberg. The ship was excavated in 1904 and remains one of the most intact high-status female Viking burials in all of Nordic archaeology. Embroidered tapestry fragments recovered from the grave depict ritual processions. Archaeologist and Stein Ingstad analyzed them and noted, the highest-ranking figure in the procession is a goddess wearing a necklace, accompanied by a cat, walking in front of a spear-carrying male god. Who is this? Freyja. And note the order, walking in front of Odin, which lines up perfectly with Grimnismal's Freyja picks first rule. The Oseberg grave proves that by the 9th century, in popular Scandinavian religion, Freyja ranked above or equal to Odin, not as a subordinate love goddess. Another often ignored gear item, the falcon cloak. Put it on, and the wearer transforms into a falcon capable of flying between the 9 worlds. Snorri writes in Skaldskaparmal, when Loki got into trouble and had to flee, he borrowed this cloak from Freyja. When Thor's hammer was stolen by giants, it was again Loki borrowing Freyja's cloak to scout the enemy camp. Key point. Every time Asgard hits an Olympus-tier crisis, the Norse god's emergency intelligence gathering tool is an artifact stored in Freyja's house. She isn't just the battlefield distributor. She is the tactical reconnaissance node of the divine system. That role sits nowhere in a love goddess house. It makes instant sense in a war magic chief house. Another telltale detail, every time a giant tries to claim Freyja as a bride, Asgard goes immediately to war. Thrym steals Thor's hammer and demands Freyja as ransom. The god's response is to cross-dress Thor as Freyja and steal the hammer back. Hrungnir gets drunk and threatens to take Freyja. Thor crushes his head. The giant builder contracted to build Asgard's walls demands Freyja, the sun, and the moon as payment. The gods break the contract and have Loki trick the builder to his death. Handing her over to a giant would collapse Asgard's entire military stack, so the gods will violate contracts, cross-dress, and kill rather than surrender her. That level of non-negotiable strategic asset treatment makes no sense for a love goddess. It fits a war magic chief plus Vanir hostage perfectly. Her human world proxies, the Freyja priestess class. In the Viking era, every major Scandinavian settlement had a Freyja, a position roughly equivalent to commander plus chief, judge, plus high priestess rolled into one. The Freyja names recorded in the Icelandic sagas often begin with Frey-, indicating they were earthly representatives of Freyja. The Vatnsdæla saga records a Freyja named Thorin who decided whether her village went to war, who became warriors, how sacrifices were performed. Translated, the highest female office in Viking society was a delegation slot from Freyja, not priestess of romance, but female commander-judge. After Christianization, this office was abolished outright, and the word Freyja disappeared from the Norse languages. Her name survives today. English Friday and German Freitag trace back to Freyja, or her Anglo-Saxon equivalent Freyja, Freyja's Day. Note that when Romans named weekdays, Friday corresponded to Venus, dies Veneris. When the Anglo-Saxons translated, they did not use Frigg, the love goddess equivalent. They attached it directly to Freyja/Freyja. Scholars take this to mean the Anglo-Saxons regarded Freyja as the top-tier Norse female deity, the only one big enough to correspond to a planetary-scale goddess. Only 3 Norse gods have a weekday named after them: Freyja, Friday; Thor, Thursday; and Odin, Wednesday. She sits next to Odin and Thor at the top. A heavy consequence. Freyja's cedar tradition was branded witchcraft by the Christian Church. During the Great European Witch Hunts from the 14th to the 17th century, around 4,000 to 6,000 witches were executed in the Nordic region alone, figures from historian Brian Levack's The Witch Hunt in early modern Europe. The most common charges: casting spells that influenced battle outcomes, prophecy, weather control, that is, the exact core capabilities of cedar. Translated, the ancient war magic Freyja taught Odin, inherited on Earth by the Freyja priestesses, was systematically hunted down and burned as heresy once the church took over. From Vanir goddess to earthly witch, the same skill lineage, redefined as heresy, then eliminated. Starting in the 20th century, Nordic archaeologists and religious scholars began systematically re-evaluating Freyja. In 1995, Swedish scholar Britt-Marie Näsström published Freyja, the Great Goddess of the North, the landmark work in this re-evaluation, using archaeology and textual evidence together to argue that Freyja is the original apex of Norse female divinity, not an accessory love goddess. When the 2017 DNA results from the Burka female warrior went public, the international academic debate effectively ended. Viking female warriors were real. After 2020, the broader Norse heathen revival, Asatru, restored Freyja to her original core goddess status, rebuilding what 1,000 years of Christianization had erased. Narratives can be reclaimed too. Pop culture is slowly swinging back. The Marvel Thor films recast Freyja as Odin's wife and Thor's mother, conflating her with Frigg. Disney-style simplification. The one that really surfaced her war magic identity was Neil Gaiman's 2017 Norse mythology, which rewrote the canon strictly from the Prose Edda and for the first time presented her cedar chief face to a mass readership. In God of War, Ragnarok, 2022, Freyja is a core warrior character, fully equipped with Brísingamen, driving a cat chariot, fighting with cedar magic. The design team said in interviews they went straight to Gylfaginning to rebuild her. She's coming back. 3 takeaways. 1. Myth softening is a religious political tool. What gets downgraded across 1,000 years of Christianization is never the existence of the deity, but the hardness of the deity. The war goddess gets softened into a love goddess. The chief gets softened into an accessory. The female lord gets softened into a housewife. The next generation only remembers the neutered version. 2. Check what archaeology says. Text is written by the victors, but burial goods, grave rank, and place name etymology are ground truth from the same era and much harder for manuscripts to alter. Osberg and Burka are that hard evidence. 3. Trace of female mythological figures gear. Freyja's necklace, chariot, cloak, and cedar magic are each harder than the last, and that tells you who she was at the root layer, not what later labels try to paint on top. This is Freyja's Norse life simulation. She was a war magic chief, not an accessory love goddess. She was the supreme lord who picks slain heroes first, not a side character. Her necklace was a fire trophy necklace, not a lover's gift. Her cat chariot was a war chariot, not a flower cart. She taught Odin. Odin was not her teacher. The Nordic Venus version we remember was written by Christianized manuscripts. Share this with a friend. Let one more person know the real name behind the goddess downgraded for 1,000 years. Next episode you want. A. Nerthus, the original Norse earth goddess completely deleted from the pantheon. The full case of how she disappeared. Or B. Egyptian Hathor was actually older than Ra. The full story of how she was demoted from mother of all to daughter of Ra? Comment below.